Welcome back to Trading 360. I'm Diane King Hall. Time now for the big three. Three stocks, three charts, three trades. Rick Ducat will take us through the charts. And here to take us through the trades is Alan Nuckman, Chief Market Strategist, BullseyeOption.com. It is great to talk to both of you. Alan, all right, let's take a look at Lyft. It's, pretty flat right now. But tell us about this first trade.
Well, the theme we have for my three trades today, they're all very similar in the fact that I'm seeing money flow into leverage positions on these individual stocks, which is a sign of smart money. Also, I'm seeing bullish divergence on this stock as well, where it made new lows in August, but not new highs in implied volatility. It's a sign of a sentiment shift, and a bottom was formed. It was a test and reject. If you look at that low in August was an earnings disappointment, and since that time, we moved upward. Comparing Lyft to Uber, Lyft is down 10% in the last 52 weeks. So far this year, whereas Uber's up 25%. So there is a bit of a disconnect there that we could see a rubber band snapback with that relationship. It's 35% off its March top, and it's 80% off the 2021 high. So we've been trading between 10 and 20 for the year, between 10 and 15 for the last 4 months. A breakout of that range targets 20, and a breakout of the year range targets 30. So the way I'm looking to play here is with a January option, a January 10 call. It's trading for about 4 with the stock at $13.50. It's $3.50 in the money, so meaning the expiration break even on this only 50 cents higher. So plus 3 months of time, a modest move will produce big gains in this stock that looks like it's set up for an upside breakout here in the near term.
All right, possible upside breakout in the near term. Rick, take us through the chart for Lyft.
Yeah, possible upside breakout in the near term would be a good headline for this chart here, because when we look at this thing, you can see that since we had these yearly highs, we've been trending downward for a while here, culminating with this low point here. Did not quite reach the 52-week lows, very similar though, bottoming out just below 9 or so, and then upward channel from that point, boundaries along the top and bottom here, crossed above our moving averages, yellow 21-day, orange 63-day, crossed above our volume profile point of control as well. However, now we are at an important point here. You can see this red line here. That was our recent high as well. Now we've kind of got this like wedge type shape between our blue line and our white line here. That's about 1421, pretty close to the strike price the break-even point that Alan was looking at on his trade here. So that would be the point that I had my eye on too for a possible bullish breakout. From that point, 1550, repeated low point here. That's our pink line, and then subsequent high point after the break downward. That would be the next potential stopping point here to the downside. Big confluence right here between 1250 to 1315 or so. We've got our moving averages, our post gap up low point, our volume profile point of control, our trend line, etc. Blah, blah, blah. A lot of stuff right there around 13 or so. Little tiny bit of bearish divergence as well, but RSI still bullish here above the 50 midline. Uptrend still in play, Diane.
All right, Alan, let's send it back over to you. Let's get your final thoughts on Lyft before we move on to your next trade.
Well, I mean, we're in an overall bull market, and I like the risk reward, and I especially like the risk reward in comparison to Uber that's been, a stellar stock for the year. So this could play a little catch up, and it's set up to do so.
Certainly could play some catch-up compared to Uber. All right, let's move on to your next trade. You've got American Superconductor in your focus stock, moving a little bit higher today. Tell us about this one.
Again, I see money flow into this stock, meaning leveraged long accumulation positioning there. So it's 30% off its July high. It's had a pullback, but this had been a momentum stock. It's still up 250% in the last year of trade. It's recently been between 15 and 30. It's come back. It came back to that 15 breakout point, and that support level held. So 22.5, where we stand right now, is an important pivot. It's a midpoint pivot of this action. So I'm looking at a January option, a January $20 call, trading for about 5 right now. It's got 3 months of time. Again, position for success. You're leaning on this 15 level, where it came back to the breakout. That was very significant. And I like the way that this chart has set up itself. Once again, with that money flow indicator, I follow the money.
Okay, follow the money. Speaking of the chart, Rick, your turn. What do you see in this chart?
Yeah, interesting company to be sure, up 268% from that low point that was almost a year ago. So really impressive growth here. And we can see, we had an interesting situation here during this run up here. Very sharp, very steep rally that took us up to those highs just below 33. That was our 52-week high there. Then we had the situation, sometimes referred to as the bull trap. Extended sharp rally here, a bit of a dip back to support. In this case, the 21-day EMA and kind of those old previous highs, then another rally that doesn't quite make it up to the previous high, and then an eventual collapse here. Certainly does not mean that it's going to stay down forever, because you can see we've had a nice channel to the upside that has had some pretty significant appreciation of prices here during that time. But now we're finding ourselves below our moving averages once again. We're pretty close to this lower boundary of our trend line. We're kind of in between these two volume node areas, these two areas of heavy trading, kind of just above and just below. So it could be important to see which direction we break in, beyond these two heavy trading areas. RSI also once again showing some bearish divergence here, but the uptrend is still in play as well, even though we did dip below the 50 midline. So bearish crossover, but still haven't broken through that trend line. If we were to move to the upside, recent highs are red line here, 27, then another gap area here, the high point we had after a gap down near 28. So between 27 and 28, resistance zone potentially, then those old highs to the downside. Repeated low point, green line, 2036, then another recent low, 1791.
All right, Alan, give us your final thoughts on this one before we go to your final trade.
So I like this one as a second chance attack here. This 2250 is an important pivot. A pop above this level significantly can send it to the range top and those highs. So I like the momentum. I like this pause, and I like this pushback above 22.5 to give it a second chance to attack those highs.
All right, a second chance there. All right, let's move on to your final trade. You've got Monster Beverage, Mnst in focus. So let's talk about this one.
Well, if you go in your Wayback Machine, we put this trade on in July, a September option, and it ended up being a break even. So that was fine as far as a trade goes. As a trader, sometimes your scratch trades are the best trades you do. You had the opportunity, but it didn't cost you anything. It set itself up again. We've been trading here between 45 and 55 for 6 months. So 50 is an important pivot. We're above that right now. And so I'm looking at the January 50 call. It's trading for about 5. And so the target on this, if we break out above the 55 level, is 65. We also had that bullish divergence low and that disappointment on the earnings in August, the same exact thing we saw in Lyft. And since then, it's been a test and reject. Let's remember, this stock is up 20,000% since its 2004 lows. So it's a momentum stock that has paused here recently, but it's still been a lot of strength in the last few years and decade, obviously.
It has paused, to your point. This year to date, it is down year to date, so it's certainly trailing broader market action. Year over year, doing a little bit better. But Rick, take us through the technicals for Monster Beverage.
Yeah, definitely a historic performer here. Set many records for its gains and everything. And recently, a bit of a downswing here. 52-week highs at 61, trending downward for quite a while there. We did look like we were perhaps going to break above that trend line there as we headed into earnings, but we kind of topped out at that green line near about 52.40. Then quite a severe gap to the downside after that earnings event there. RSI crossed into the oversold area, a sign of weakness, but a quick recovery once again as well. And you can see we made our way very swiftly back up to this green line, but we were not able to close above it. You'll notice that there was several intraday moves beyond that green line there, but never a strong close beyond that point here. Then once again, a bit of a slide to the downside gives us, now we have our white trend line to draw because we have 2 points to connect here, but we could also draw a much steeper blue trend line here that now has once again been broken. So we have failed at this red line here, this previous high 53.90. That's an important point to beat. Our volume profile, point of control, lines up with Allen's break even once again here, 55, important tipping point. And then from there, we'd want to take out those old highs near about 56 or so. To the downside, another confluence here. The old highs, our green line, line up with purple 252-day EMA and 21-day EMA. So a confluence of indicators providing what could be a key support level there.
All right, key support level there. Alan, I'm going to give the floor back to you for the final word.
Well, it's equally about how you trade is what you trade. So for this stock to get to 60, this option would be $10 in the money, therefore gaining 100%. So what it shows is a modest move in the underlying can produce big gains with a limited risk option, and the January option has plenty of time for bullish development here.
All right, Alan Nuckman with the final look at Mnst Monster, Alan Nuckman, bullseyeoption.com, and of course, Duke Data, Rick Ducat. Thank you both. Coming up next, we're going to spotlight Ingram Micro. It's a tech distribution company. It has made its public debut here at the New York Stock Exchange. We'll welcome in the CFO to give us some more insight on its debut. Stay with us. It'll be on